All right, I'm just gonna make sure everything's working sound wise here before we get rolling and tweet out a link. Um, Mainly just gonna go over some picks I see in terms of value. Again, these are not like actual picks or things I'm actually taking. If I do take any of these, I will obviously tweet out the link um, at some point or tweet out the pick at some point. These are just like numbers that I'm looking at early on. Um, and teams that I essentially see value for. A lot of these numbers have changed uh, since I made these picks yesterday. So let me just get this link tweeted out. Let's make sure everything's good. All right, we're good to go. So I was going through mainly just looking at odds and stuff for outrights, and I tried to go through the bracket and kind of look at maybe a couple teams in each region that could eventually make some sort of a push. And there were a handful that jumped out at me. I think the South and the East are probably the two most wide open brackets, um, just because Baylor aren't playing their best basketball. And there are a lot of teams in the South and the East that are higher seeded teams that are probably better than, I mean, I'm just looking in the East, BYU a six, Florida State a four, UConn a seven. Um, and then you go to the South and you got, North Carolina at eight, Purdue a four, Texas Tech a six, Utah State an 11. They're just like a lot of really good teams there. So I guess I'm going to start uh, kind of trying to go in order, and we'll look at the West. First off, Gonzaga starting out at whatever it was. I think it's changed since. No, they're back to plus 200 to win the whole thing, which is ridiculous. I know they're good. Don't get me wrong. I think they're the best team in the country, and they probably should have the best odds. But plus 200 to win this whole thing. I mean, no team is a 2-1 favorite to win March Madness, to go through the whole tournament without losing. It's just not there. So there's no value in betting Gonzaga, in my opinion. They might win it 2-1, whatever, plus 200, plus 210. They're minus 210 to even make the Final Four. I understand that they probably could have an easy path, and it doesn't look like there could be much traction there. But that's still a lot of basketball games you got to win to get there. I don't think there should be any team with minus odds gets the Final Four. I definitely don't. I think plus 200 is ridiculous for them to win it all. Um, but I guess looking at the West, the value that I see it probably in USC and Kansas, both on the bottom end of that bracket. There's probably value in Oregon too. I don't really think they're a win it all kind of team, but I think Kansas and USC are both teams that very well could win it all. And I think yesterday you could get USC at 65-1 to win it all. They are now down to 55-1. Yesterday you could have got Kansas at 70-1, and they are all the way down to 50-1. So I did grab Kansas um, kind of early on because it's Kansas, and 70-1 kind of seemed ridiculous. They're a team that were in the top five multiple times throughout the year. So clearly they have the ability to compete against some better teams. Clearly there are people out there that think they're a top four, top five team. I think when they're playing their best basketball, they probably are. They seem to be hitting their peak right now, 70-1, 50-1, whatever. Kansas is probably, in my opinion, one of the best values to win it all right now if you're looking for kind of more of a long shot. Um, and then I said USC. I just think they're a good team. I think they match up well with who they're going to play. I think they get through the winner, Wichita Drake. They match up against Kansas, so it's kind of like the winner of that game to go on. I think both of those teams match up well against Iowa or Oregon if you're kind of picking the upset there, VCU, whatever. I think that USC, Kansas, both are really good matchups, and they would just have to get through Gonzaga to get to the Final Four, maybe make a run. I mean, when you're betting on these teams to win the national championship, you're just kind of hoping they get to the Final Four and kind of give you a chance, and then you're in a position to kind of hedge this stuff all the way through. Um, so Kansas, USC is who I like in the West. The only team I really even thought about in the Midwest, I mean, obviously outside of Illinois, is West Virginia, just because I think they get through Morehead State. San Diego State, Syracuse wouldn't be too worried about either of those teams against them. Houston, I think they could play well against. So really, it would just be Illinois, and then getting through whoever comes out of the South. That it's solid value. West Virginia to win it all right now is 50-1. You can get them at 7.5-1 just to make the Final Four. I think their value is way down right now. West Virginia is probably one of the other teams I'm looking at right behind Kansas for some real value. To the East, again, wide open. Michigan to make the Final Four at plus 220 is interesting, um, because they really could have an easy shot to go through. Georgetown, Colorado, whoever wins that game, match up against Florida State, UNCG. I think they match up against all those teams really, really well, considering I'm just banking on them getting through. Winner of St. Mary's, Texas Southern, LSU, St. Bonnie, either or. And then you look at the bottom part of that bracket: Alabama, UConn, Texas, BYU, potentially winner of Michigan State, UCLA, maybe Maryland. It's a really good value on Michigan to get to the Final Four at plus 220. And that's probably one that I am going to go ahead and take pretty early on while it still exists. And then to win the national championship, they're 8-1, which is still really good odds for a team that's been top five for as long as they have. So consistency's there. The team's good. Michigan's probably worth a look in the East. And then I also I wrote down Texas, and I actually took Texas, I believe, um, at 45-1, and they are now at 35-1. So constantly changing odds here. A lot of teams dropping as money's coming in on some of these teams that are long shot favorites, which is normal. So kind of expected that to happen. So that was the Midwest. And then we're just looking, I guess, mainly in the South region. Uh, I looked at Ohio State and Texas Tech. Both Texas Tech have the pieces. They've been here before. They had that pedigree as a tournament team. I got them at 65-1, and then I to win it outright. I got them at 65-1. And then I got Ohio State at 21-1. Ohio State is still at 21-1. Texas Tech is still at 65-1. So there are still two teams that you can get the same odds I got, and I like them where they are. I think both of those are teams that could win it all and definitely could get to the Final Four. You can get Ohio State in the Final Four at plus 480, which is a really, really good number. And if you want to still stick with Texas Tech, 10-1, which is obviously great as well. The only other Final Four games that I wrote down, teams that I haven't talked on, Florida State and Texas, both were at 7-1 to make the Final Four. I'm trying to get that to update. If not, I'll just go here. Let's see. Uh, what did I say? Texas and Florida State. Yeah, so Texas is at 5.5-1. Florida State's at 6.5-1. I got both of them were at 7-1. I took Texas, didn't take Florida State, but I mean, to get through that East, it's just kind of about beating Michigan, because I think the bottom part of that bracket it's super weak, and I think Texas can waltz right into the Sweet 16, potentially the Elite Eight. The Florida State Michigan matchup would be great to see. So yeah, there's value in Texas and Florida State to get through Michigan down there, especially at 7-1 yesterday, which now those are a little off. Texas at 5.5-1, Florida State 6.5-1, but it still exists. In the Midwest, I kind of just needed to pick some different teams there outside of West Virginia. They were the only value team for me. So Oregon State was 60-1 um, to get to the Final Four. And they're now at 66-1. So that's going in the opposite direction if you want to grab that. I think they're a good 12-5 matchup. I think they get through the first round and maybe make a push later on there. So that's that. And Loyola Chicago is 11-1. I don't really like them as much as most people do, but if they get through Georgia Tech, maybe a little bit of magic against Illinois. Who knows? But there's definitely value there as well. And then UConn in the East. I forgot to mention them when I was going through the East. They were 13-1, but it's still that same thing that I've been saying about Texas, about Florida State. The bottom part of that bracket, in my opinion, is really, really weak, and it's wide open. And UConn gets through there, beats Michigan. They're in the Final Four, 13-1. I like it. The East is wide open. I would look at any of those teams, whoever your favorite is, to get there and match up against Michigan or Florida State in the Elite Eight. You got to look at taking them to make the Final Four, just in case that game doesn't, or just in case that part of the bracket or that region as a whole just doesn't go as planned. Um, so yeah, I think that's most of what I'm looking at. I think my favorite bets for sure: Kansas to go all the way, um, and Ohio State to go all the way. Those are probably my two favorites. And in terms of Final Four, Michigan at plus 220 is really good value. Ohio State at plus 480 is great value. Texas or Florida State, whichever one of those you're more on, to make the Final Four, still really good value. Just kind of hedging against Michigan there, if you wanted to. And then my favorite pick in terms of value right now is in the West, and it's for Oregon to actually make the Final Four. I got them at 30-1, and right now they are sitting at 20-1. So those odds have come down quite a bit. But 30-1 on Oregon to make the Final Four. Again, things happen. But it's kind of the same thing. The bottom part of this bracket is wide open. I know I've mentioned USC, I've mentioned Kansas. I think Oregon matches up great against Iowa. If they can get through VCU, they can then get on to whoever comes out of that Kansas, USC, Wichita, Drake, Eastern Washington, perhaps. Um, but the money, it's definitely there in the bottom part of that West region and the bottom part of that East region for a team that's a higher seed to make it out, compete against the 1 or the 4 in both of those, possibly the 5 or even the 8 with Oklahoma in the West. But there's value there for sure. So I like Oregon to make the Final Four. Kansas is still 17-1 to make the Final Four, which is good value. Texas 7-1 to make the Final Four. Texas Tech 10-1 to make the Final Four. Ohio State is at plus 480 to make the Final Four. Michigan plus 220. All those are great value. And then outrights, I'm in love with Kansas at 70-1, even though that's 50-1 now. And Ohio State at 21-1 to win the whole thing. They're a super underrated team. They're one of those teams that are peaking at the right moment and haven't really been there yet. So I think I'm sold on those kind of teams as value. Uh, I think the picks that I've tweeted out that I'm definitely taking, I don't want to say this wrong because I try and put uh, picks out as far as what I'm saying. So let's see. Um, Again, these are only, yeah. So the only outrights I put out are Ohio State 21-1 and USC at 55-1. But I did also take Kansas at 70-1. Um, so again, going to stick with that. Um, those are kind of my three outrights: Ohio State 21-1, USC 55-1, and then or sorry, USC 55-1, and then Kansas 71. Those are my three picks right now. I'll probably go Michigan to make the Final Four at plus 220. Kansas to make the Final Four at 17-1, and then Oregon to make the Final Four at 30-1, which I've already taken that. They're down to 20-1 now. Let me see what Kansas is at now. Um, in the West, they are now at 14-1, so down a little bit from 17-1, but still really good numbers to look at for these guys. I just want to put out this just to like say like these are kind of stuff I'm looking at. If you're looking in terms of value, if one of these teams jumps out that you think that you're interested in taking, kind of just maybe reaffirming what you were thinking and saying that there's value that lies in not really betting the favorites early on. But if I take any more of these futures bets, I'll tweet them out, let you guys know. If you have any questions, reach out. I like answering that sort of stuff on Twitter. I will be posting my write-ups for each game maybe like 10-15 minutes before tip off, obviously, because I still have my own bracket stuff going on. So I don't want to show my cards too early. But I'm rolling through those. I pretty much have all the Friday games done. Obviously, the numbers are going to change. So I have to go back in and edit Thursday and Friday as a spread, and the money lines and stuff like that rotate. But I'm blocking in most of these bets that I like early on because there's going to be trends. Numbers are going to change. So if there's stuff that I'm really, really on right now, I'm going ahead locking in the bet, letting it go. I don't want to tweet it out too early again because I got my own bracket stuff going on. But yeah, that'll probably do it for what I got. Again, questions, I'll answer them all. Just reach out on Twitter. But other than that, best of luck. It's best time of the year. Lots of basketball on. Good luck with everyone's brackets.